Well, hello, I'm Curt.
And I'm Rob.
And this is the Being HUMN podcast, where we share real world stories with simple insights to help you better connect with your audience and grow your business with clear, effective marketing.
This is episode 4.
This is episode 4.
It goes fast.
It does. Yeah, this is fun.
Excited about today's topic.
Yeah, it's especially meaningful to me. We're going to be talking about nonprofits today. And the first 10 years of my career were spent in nonprofits. So a lot of what it means to serve other people with big heart and big mission resonates deeply with me.
Yeah, we've up to this point really talked about using the StoryBrand approach and the framework for businesses that are for-profit and how to connect with their customers and really drive growth, right, and increase revenue. So I think we've been recently working with a lot of nonprofits, so we thought this would be a great topic to kind of dive into and like, how does this work? Does it work?
Exactly.
And just maybe even some of the complexity that comes along with applying it to nonprofits. So
Yeah, so StoryBrand, it was created by Donald Miller, and originally it was designed to be used with businesses. And so the whole approach of having a singular target audience that you build a brand script around it was originally very clear, straightforward in terms of, if you have a business, you have one target audience, you might have subsets of that target audience and have sub-brand scripts for them. But with nonprofits, you really have two target audiences.
Right.
You have the people that you're serving or your mission, and you have your donors, because if they're not a primary target audience, you don't have a mission.
You're not serving anybody.
That's right. Yep. So in terms of how you apply a StoryBrand framework, it requires some nuancing. It requires some understanding of which components you use in each one of these brand scripts. What we're going to be talking about today is not only that mission brand script for who you serve and your donor brand script for the people who make it possible, but we're also going to be talking about an approach that we're calling a public brand script that really combines the mission brand script with the donor brand script that can be used in a more wider audience. So going deeper into that, I think, is really important.
Great. Well, let's talk a little bit about why do nonprofits struggle sometimes to communicate well,
Yes.
and they're very passionate people, right? So it seems like it would make sense that they can share that story really well. But what have you seen in your experience, both working in nonprofits and even with some of their clients, and why do you think mission-based organizations struggle a lot with communicating?
Yeah. I think the reality is that nonprofits get started on the right foot. I don't think that there's any nonprofit out there that has had some degree of success starting out that hasn't put the mission first and hasn't been able to clearly communicate with a donor about what the donor is wanting and the problem that they have, and then how the mission is actually helping them solve their problem as a donor. The challenge is that nonprofits will often get into a cycle where they start to feel anxiety around having enough money to continue. When that happens, it's really simple for nonprofits, CEOs of nonprofits, development officers, even staff who are on board to raise funds, to end up talking about their own need. We need money. I worked with a very large nonprofit that served campuses. It was a Christian ministry called InterVarsity, and I was an area director with them for 5 years. And when I came on board to lead the ministry in West Michigan, one of the things I saw was that exact thing where the staff needed to raise their own support, and most of them weren't because they were so committed to the work on campus And that resulted in limited donor conversations, limited funding. And the donor conversations that they had were basically, please, like, we need your money. I need to stay on staff. And really what that
Not
does,
a very compelling argument.
It's not compelling. And nobody wants to like invest in a sinking ship, right? And the reality is these nonprofits, they may feel like they're sinking, but they're not. Like, they have donors behind them. It's a matter of being able to keep that mission first, know who you're talking with, and have enough presence to be able to speak to what their heart is longing for. Now, you can do that to the people that you're serving. You can do that with the donors that you're speaking with. You can do that to the larger public. But at the end of the day, if your audience feels like you're really the one that's in need,
you're the hero,
right? Then you are failing to share like the message that needs to be shared, because the reality is what you're doing is really important to this world, and you want the world to hear it. You just have to be able to speak in a way that the world can understand.
Yeah. What happens when nonprofits make themselves the hero of the story? Yeah. What happens?
When they make themselves the hero of the story, I think what often happens is donors will feel that disconnect. They will feel like they're being invited to be an ATM, a bank that's just kind of investing in something they hope will result. Yep. When you make yourself the hero, you're basically cutting that tie between the people who can help you most to accomplish the mission. At the end of the day, this mission needs more than you. This mission needs a community of believers in this cause.
Yeah, I think we've also seen people who they're passionate about it. So they talk about how passionate they are about it, and think everybody's going to agree with them, right? Yes. And the donations will just come because of that, right? They see how passionate I'm doing, what I'm doing, and focusing on themselves, what they're doing. I think they think people will just start to give, because that's what I would do if you were in that. So I think it's important to take a step back and understand where donors are coming from. What are they trying to accomplish by giving? Yes, they need to align with your values, your mission, but they're trying to accomplish something through this process too, and getting in their heads a little bit and understanding it, I think goes a long way in having them become a community around you. Absolutely.
So we talk often from a StoryBrand perspective of how our brains are constantly trying to do two things. One of those is we're trying to look for things that help us survive or thrive. And the other thing is we're trying to conserve calories. We don't have enough calories in our body to be able to process all of the 3,000 advertisements that we get hit with every day. And so what we're looking for is we're looking for things that are clear, that are connected to what helps us survive or thrive, and that we know how to act on. When there is that level of clarity, people are able to move freely into whatever it is that you're offering. And what tends to happen is when a nonprofit is talking about themselves, they end up expecting the donor to connect the dots. And so you're asking them, let's say somebody is sharing stories about the work that they're doing. And these are positive stories. But the donor, unless it's being communicated with them and not to them, the donor still has to internally bridge like how it's important to them that certain causes are being acted upon. The stories can be inspiring, but leaving that connection to them requires that they're burning a lot of calories that could be used in taking action.
Yeah. How do they see themselves in those stories, right?
Exactly.
Yeah. How do you invite them into that, even if they're not volunteering their time or being, hands-on. Like how do they see themselves so they get invested as well? Yeah.
That's right.
Let's talk a little bit about the framework. I know we've gone through this on a few other episodes, but just give a high level of like how does the StoryBrand structure work, and then how does that start to apply to both the mission and the donor?
Yeah. So the idea behind the StoryBrand framework is that we're understanding the people, the character as being on a journey. Now, the character in the case of a nonprofit, and we'll explain this a little bit more in depth in a few minutes, but is either the people that you're serving or the donor. The character wants something. In any good story, you understand the character is after something. And then in any good story, they encounter conflict. It's not a story until there's conflict. Right. So the StoryBrand approach says there's a character who wants something, but they encounter a problem. That problem causes them to feel a certain way, and it underlies this belief that they have around the world. We call that the philosophical problem. They're stuck until they meet a guide who can help them. The guide has to come with a certain level of empathy and authority for that person to believe them enough to take action. So you have the character who has a problem, who meets a guide, who gives them a plan. And that plan is another component of the StoryBrand framework. We simplify it down to 3 things. People can't remember more than 3 things. And of course, there's going to be 20 to 1,000 things that people have to do. But if they generally understand what they have to do in 3 things, they're more likely to buy into it. And the first thing is usually the call to action. So there's the plan, there's the call to action. And if they take that call to action, they can experience success, which we define, instead of failure. That path that I just explained, once you understand those components, you can see how every single movie is made, how every single book is written. Without one of those elements, it's not compelling. But when you have each one of those elements, you are drawn into something. And that's another thing that makes StoryBrand so powerful, is that we don't like cliffhangers. Like we want to be told a story.
Tell me how it ends.
And we want to know how it ends.
Yeah, and I think the mission brand script probably becomes easier for nonprofits, right? Like this is what they do, right? They live this day in and day out. They're talking to the people they're serving, telling them what they need to do, showing the success, I think. So talk a little bit about the differences as we're building out brand scripts about the mission and the donor brand script and why that other piece is so important.
Right. So again, when you start communicating, the most important thing is to understand who you're actually communicating with. So when we talk about a mission brand script, the character is not a donor. The character is the person that you're serving, or the cause that you're trying to engage in. And now this can depend on like the type of nonprofit that you have, but at the end of the day, you're speaking to someone who has this or is involved in this problem, and you're letting them know we understand what it is that you're wanting. Then in a mission brand script, you go down to, and we understand the problem that you're having.
And it's usually pretty clear.
It's pretty clear.
Clean water.
You
right?
don't have
or
water.
Food.
Right.
Right. Yeah.
You want to be
Shelter.
able to give your kids a long life.
Right. Right.
The problem is they don't have clean water to drink. And that's got to make a parent feel desperately hopeless. Like it incredibly sad. Because underneath all of that, the reality is everybody deserves to have clean water to drink. That's an underlying belief. That's a philosophical problem. Only then, in a mission brand script, are you able to go to we get it. Like the guide can show up after all of that's communicated. And as a guide in a mission brand script, you're basically saying, we understand the desperate frustration that you have in not being able to provide your kids with water.
Yeah.
Yeah.
Super clear. Yeah.
Actually saying those words are powerful. A lot of people skip over the empathy piece.
They have a solution. Yep.
But we understand that desperate frustration that you have. And then the authority piece is, and that's why our clean water organization has existed for the last 20 years, helping X million
put in so many
people
wells across this.
Correct. So, and then the plan would be, this is where like there would need to be some understanding of the organization, but what steps would those you're serving need to take in order to have clean water through your organization? It's, fill out this online form,
qualified or whatever,
get qualified, work with us to build a well for your community, have clean water to drink. It's 3 steps, right?
It's pretty obvious, yeah.
Exactly. But when we talk about donors, donors have clean water to drink. So if you come out the gate talking with donors about like how important it is for them to have clean water, they're like, well, you don't.
That's great for them.
Yeah, it's great for them.
How does that impact me? Yeah.
The donor actually is wanting something more. Usually donors are compassionate people and they want to make a tangible difference in the world. And how they do that, like they tend to select certain values and fund those values. And so what the donor is wanting is to be able to make a tangible difference in the lives of a certain people group. The problem is, and for the donor, it comes down to they're not sure who to give to or how to give in a way that's going to make the kind of difference that's meaningful for them, right? So that's the problem that the donor is wrestling with. And still, again, we haven't even talked about this organization. You're simply saying, we know you want to make a tangible difference, and yet there's so many options out there, and not all of them seem credible, and so you feel kind of stuck and helpless, or you feel frustrated because the options that you have don't feel sufficient. And underneath that is this deeper conviction that donors have that if they have been given extravagant resources, that it shouldn't be so hard to use those resources to help people, right? That's where the guide can show up and say, look, we understand how frustrating it is not to know how to make that kind of tangible difference.
The organization,
or trust the organization.
The money is actually being used.
Exactly. Right? And I am using a very clear pathway in telling the story to illustrate each of these parts. But the reality is it's important to be able to like step deeply into conversation and try to figure out what is for our donor or for our mission, what is that thing that's most compelling that they want? Most compelling, that's the problem. Most compelling, that's the belief undergirding that. Right. So for the donor, they want to know that you get that they're frustrated, that they desire or long to give to something that's trustworthy and is going to make lasting impact. And then in that phase of the story, in the guide showing up as a mission organization, you're able to say, that's why we do such and such. And the authority often will contain something like we're working with a nonprofit right now, and they have a 98% rating on Charity Navigator. A donor wants to know that there's authority there, that's trustworthy, right? They have a gold star rating on another site. So the authority piece is basically assuring the donor in this case that they're trustworthy and have a track record that will give them confidence in order to hear the plan that they have. So the plan for the donor is very different than the plan for the mission. Right. It's more learn more about the difference that we make. A typical first step that people have is give today, but oftentimes a little bit more is needed in order for somebody to be convinced or moved to give. And so oftentimes what we try to wrestle with is give today the second thing
right.
that is part of the plan? I tend to think so, because the first thing usually has to involve a little bit more education. Yeah. And this is where the power of video, I think, can come in. Like a 2-minute video that like shows the power, the transforming impact.
The heart of your mission.
The heart of their mission. And using a brand script narrative to do that allows for that clear and succinct storytelling in a brand video. But then for the donor, it is basically learn more, give today, see the impact that you're making.
Or
get involved.
See it firsthand.
That's right.
Yeah. Talk a little bit about this path. I think goes a long way, because I think a lot of organizations have the donate button, right? Like that's easy. But the lifeblood of nonprofits is the ongoing giving.
That's
and
right.
I think, talked about this inside of like donors need that path to be a champion and to hear the passion, or they don't need a pitch because they're more prone to give maybe a one-off gift in that instance versus truly understanding the heart of the mission, truly seeing the impact it can have. And then are they going to be a lifelong donor, right? And I think that's the difference, I think, in a lot of this is if you invite them into this story, they're going to join the mission and be there for the long haul and see the impact, over time. So talk a little bit about that and the importance of that difference.
Well, I think one of the most important things to simply recognize is that different donors have different capabilities, and there's a certain way to engage some donors who maybe are able to give a $20 a month gift, versus a donor who is capable of making a 6 or 7 figure gift, but maybe needs to kind of test it out first with a $20,000, $30,000 gift. The key there in a donor brand script is to ensure you're talking generally but compellingly to donors overall, but then in your internal process, recognizing that there's certain donors that you need to speak with who are able to give a certain amount, and the way that you engage with them is going to be slightly different, actually dramatically different than the way that you engage with other major donors, we call them. So overall, I think what's important, and what we tend to do with any client that we work with, is we start with the overarching brand script. Like, and in the case of a nonprofit, the overarching brand script is brand scripts. So there's the mission, there's the donor, and then it's a matter of figuring out, now that you have that overarching story in place, how do you boil that down for the different donor types? I think there's always a need for people who are willing to sustain a mission at a simple level. I think this is really important to say. Any gift has the same value. When you're engaging someone, a $20 a month gift is just as valuable as $1 million gift, because it's what's coming from that person's heart, and it's what they can give.
Yeah.
And it's the same for major donors. It's what's coming from their heart and what they can give. I think one of the biggest challenges that I've seen in in fundraising is that when you begin shifting towards asking for larger gifts, that a fear creeps in around, is it okay for me to ask for a large gift? Mm-hmm. And again, I think the StoryBrand approach is so powerful because it allows you to step back from yourself and recognize what is your anxiety about asking for a gift versus who are you talking with?
Right.
Because somebody who can make $1 million gift, at the end of the day, they're a person.
They have a need too.
They have a need too.
The problem they're trying to solve.
And if you're showing up, putting your need first, of course, there's going to be anxiety around that. But if you show up putting their need first, then you can engage with them in a comfortable, authentic way that invites them to give according to their ability. So in that sense, yes, different dollar amounts make different impact, but all gifts are valuable because they're coming from a human being that wants to make a difference in the world.
Yeah, and I think that's a trap. I think a lot of nonprofits fall into of spending so much time trying to get the big gift that they lose sight that the value of these ongoing smaller gifts adds up over time and that they're just as committed partners in your mission, right?
That's right.
And don't lose sight of that in the process when you value them. Each individual giver or donor is a person who has a need that you're trying to help solve and connect to the mission. So I think that's a great point.
So related to how to use a donor brand script, I think there's a couple important things to point out. One is that a donor brand script is not intended to be memorized.
Right.
The whole idea around brand scripts is that you're able to clearly and succinctly tell the story, but it needs to adapt based on your audience, right? If you're meeting with a donor at one giving level versus a donor at a different giving level, the way that you are talking and sharing with them needs to account for the different people that they are, right? So the whole idea behind creating these brand scripts is simply to ensure that you as an organization, how you talk about yourself generally is all aligned so that you're avoiding confusion.
Yeah, that's great. Talk a little bit about the differences between and then talk a little bit about the public brand script and how each one is used and where maybe each one can be used for nonprofits so they understand kind of the public one isn't new. It's just taking the key elements from both and bringing them. So talk a little bit about that.
Yeah. So a lot of this depends on, as an organization, you evaluating who needs to be communicated to and how, right? So if you have a if you have a website, I think the reality is you have to be making decisions about, is your primary audience going to be going to your website, or are most of your donors going to be going to your website? You may end up having a landing page for each, but at the end of the day, the question that we always need to be asking ourselves in marketing is, who are we communicating, and is this the best way to reach them?
Right.
So when you think about the application of a mission brand script, that would be a great thing to put or to leverage to create materials that might help the people that you're trying to serve, so that they know that you're understanding them, that you understand what they're really looking for. That could, like I said, be a landing site on a website. A donor really needs to have some place to validate like what they're hearing from someone. So if somebody is out at some sort of event and has a conversation, and this person is a donor, they share a business card, that person is going to go to your website to try to figure out, okay, can I get on board this? Right. They're probably looking at that website prior to meeting with you again. And so I think what you want to do on a website is you want it to be more donor facing. And then I think that the challenge that we have too is that a website is also public facing. So this may not be directed entirely to your donors.
Right.
And in some way, the general public, whether they're the people that you serve or donors or just people who are curious, they need to be able to understand what it is you're doing.
Right.
And they need to understand that quickly, right? People are on a website for, on average, 3.7 to 5.2 seconds. Most times they leave because they don't understand what it is, or their first brush with the brand is communicating something to them that they're just not interested in, right? So like we talk about a public brand script as being the combination of a mission brand script and a donor brand script. And basically what you're doing in a public facing brand script is you're starting by talking about the cause. So it starts with the mission brand script components, and it says, hey, there's a lot of families in our community who are really struggling to have this. And the problem, they're really wanting this for themselves, dignity, ability to feed their family, provide things for their family. And yet the problem is this. Then in a public facing brand script, you make a shift in the empathy and guide piece where you say, basically, we understand how frustrating it is as a general public, that we want to make a difference for this kind of cause, and yet we don't know how. And then from that point forward, it's kind of more shifted towards the donor. So the cause and the problem is mission. It's related to the problem that exists in the world. Yep. And everything else that follows has to do with the donor. It's inviting somebody in to help remedy that problem.
So just in simple terms, mission brand script, you're talking to those you're serving in those environments, whether it's a brochure or a flyer or anything to help them understand it, a landing page, because it's probably not the main audience of your website. Donor brand script, when more probably in the one-on-one conversations you're having with donors, right? You're understanding their needs specifically. Maybe it's a small presentation or a PowerPoint to kind of help them understand, or a video. And then the public one is taking those elements and kind of combining it for the broader audience. So it could be your social media, it could be your, a larger gala event, or in something where you want to share the heart of the mission, who you are and what you're doing, but then quickly invite them into that story, right?
That's perfectly said.
It's taking those elements of who you're serving and the problem that you're seeing out there, and then positioning it as like, and you can help us achieve that, right? So it's taking those elements and communicating in a way that's convicting. It's narrative. It's really emotional for the people that are reading it and understanding it. So they're ready to jump in, and whatever that looks like with donations or volunteers. So that's a good. Helping understand each of those pieces, I think, is a big part of it, because I think, like I said, a lot of times, organizations will talk to donors and they just talk about their mission, right?
That's right.
And they don't understand the difference mindset that donors have in those conversations. So that's where I think they'll maybe give once because it's a great cause, and but they don't see themselves in that story. And I think that's a big piece, a big miss, I think, for a lot of organizations when they're talking to donors in those areas. Yeah.
You've worked with a number of nonprofits in volunteering. Your wife is involved in a nonprofit. What's it been like for you, Rob, seeing how the StoryBrand approach can be utilized to help those kinds of organizations that you've been involved with.
Yeah, I think the biggest thing I've seen is just bringing alignment and clarity around the mission. I think a lot of times maybe the person who started it or the president has a very clear picture of what it is, and they communicate it when they're in person with people, or even they have a hard time succinctly communicating it. And then it kind of gets watered down as it goes through the team or, through a broader group in even the board, right? They might have a different take on, okay, what is the mission? What are we really trying to accomplish here? And so what I've seen as a process is just bringing that alignment to say, oh, okay, this is clearly, I have a picture clearly of our mission now. Now I can get them on board with this and start to tell that story consistently. I think we even had, experience where we did a brand script for a small nonprofit here in Grand Rapids, and we met with their board and kind of presented it to them to get their feedback. And these people who are involved in this mission, right? And one of the gentlemen's like, after reading the donor brand script and understanding, he's like, I need to reevaluate my donation, my investment into this mission because I get it now.
I remember that.
And you get me now and my mindset and how I approach it. I'm giving my time already. I'm giving my money, but now I'm compelled to reevaluate it and maybe get involved more. And I think that was stood out to me as like, okay, I think there's an opportunity here to go deeper and to help these organizations communicate at a level that's going to engage people deeply. Whatever that looks like, right? It could be more money, could be more time and volunteers, but I think anything we can do to help bring that alignment, bring that clarity to help them connect with their constituents, their community better and deeper to grow the mission. I think that's what's exciting.
Oh man, that resonates so deeply with me. I've served on boards before, and it's heart-wrenching to know that you care about this cause, but not know exactly how to tell other people about it. Like I've been in that position where like I'm scrambling in my mind to figure out how do I succinctly communicate what it is this organization does.
There's a lot that you do, right?
That's right. And as a board member, like you want to represent your organization well. There's a lot of pressure that I think board members experience, and all they want is to be able to share the story.
Yeah. I think the other opportunity we have with working with organizations is to help them make the ask at the right time. Yeah. I think they get into this, especially like on social media, right? Like, well, what story are you telling, and what are you trying to accomplish with it? We do that with for-profit organizations too, but looking at each of those opportunities and saying, okay, are you telling this story in a way that's going to cause a reaction? What is that call to action you want? What are you trying to accomplish with it? So you can look at your social media content calendar and say, okay, we're going to drive actual action with these posts. And it's not, it can be more than just, hey, here's what's going on, right? Yeah. And a general surface level communication, where you can actually drive people to donate or sign up for this or follow this. I think it gives a framework for really communicating with intent around the mission and organization, which I think a lot of people are afraid to do sometimes in different environments. And I think it gives you a framework and a story to tell that you can easily then invite people in through different ways.
That relationship is so important. And I would just encourage any nonprofit leaders out there to consider what are ways that you can create experiences for your donors that maybe don't always include an ask.
Right.
Because the reality is these are people. And if they feel like they're being treated like ATMs, they're going to be less inclined to lean into the mission. So are there some ways, I'm just like playing volleyball here and setting you up for a spike, but I know the organization that your wife is involved in does some really wonderful things that you and her have been part of this summer. You can just share a couple of examples of that.
Yeah. So my wife works for David's House Ministries, and always excited to give them a plug. But they work with, I wish I had their brand script here, I could read off, but we haven't finalized it with them. But they work with adults with disabilities. They have a community-based organization in Wyoming, Michigan that reaches out to a wide range of adults, and it's a great organization. But we've been able, as she's been a part of it, to get involved and just to see the impact. These are people too, which I think is a big thing that people miss. And I think knowing that this opportunity to get involved is in people's backyards, I think is another opportunity that gets missed, and just helping communicate that and to raise awareness on the great work they're doing. It goes a long way, and it's meaningful work. And so it's been great to be able to get involved with them and to help really drive that message to a broader audience and see the impact it's going to have.
They've had a couple concerts this summer.
Been fun.
Yeah.
It's a great organization they're inviting other people in Christian music and across the country really, and what they're doing. So it's been fun.
Yeah, it's beautiful. People, when they care about a cause, they tend not to want to just be on the periphery.
Right.
They want to be invited in regardless of whether or not they can take those steps. And so offering them more than just an opportunity to give, but a way to actually step closer to the people that are being served, to the people who are doing that serving, is just a beautiful thing that, again, it builds trust. It probably lays a foundation for long-term giving.
Yeah, I think, again, people go back to the plan. They ask for donate now, right? And it's that take the step. Well, before you donate, why don't you come get a tour, right? Or let's volunteer for a day, or come to the concert, right? Like I think it goes a long way in helping them understand the mission when they can see it in real time, touch and feel it, right? And I think even working with this organization, that's what they want to do, is like, no, you're excited to give, but I think you'd rather see it first, and then we can talk about that, right? Once you understand it, because I think people are prone to give more or be more compassionate when they can truly understand it, see it firsthand of the impact it's having.
Yeah, absolutely.
Awesome. Anything else, from a nonprofit standpoint? Obviously, we've talked a lot about the brand script and how it can be leveraged to communicate for nonprofits. It's really not about marketing, I don't think. I think it's about clearly communicating the mission you have. And I think, like I said, a lot of leaders probably are doing that in person or in their own conversations, but it's helping your team and the broader public understand that when you're not in the room, where the opportunity is. Get that clarity and that alignment.
So I'm curious to know, like you have a background in human-centered design. I think it'd be interesting to hear from you a little bit more in terms of how you actually would take brand script for a nonprofit and incorporate it into graphic design. Are there a few tips that you can give to our listeners for what some basic things would be that they can do? Or can you just speak a little bit more about how you see the bridge between human-centered design and StoryBrand for nonprofits?
Yeah, so I think it goes beyond just nonprofits, but I think the value we've brought to human and combining these things. So human-centered design basically is the understanding the needs of the people you're serving before you come up with a solution, to solve those needs. So it's spending time with them, having empathy for them, kind of validating what you think the problem you're solving for them is. So it's really the same as like for nonprofits. One, you probably understand that for those you're serving, right? You're close to it. That's why you started this. You have a really clear understanding. I would say, like, take the time to talk to your donors, right? Yeah. Why do you give, right? What are you really trying to accomplish through your giving?
Yes.
And taking that time to ask them the questions. I don't think a lot of people do that, right? They jump right into their presentation, talk about all the great things they're doing. And so it's just taking a few minutes to hear from them, I think would go a long way in helping craft your story better. Yeah. If you understand their needs, like we talked about, and taking the time to do that. And it doesn't have to be that complicated. It's 5 minutes, ahead of any conversation or a cup of coffee, just taking the time to ask them. I think anybody appreciates being asked, and whether it's your customers or your donors, goes a long way in you understanding them and really, I think, improving what message you're gonna be talking to them about.
Yeah. Oh, it's so beautiful. And just a really simple thing. I just want to come back to what you said, asking them for feedback. I mean, if you have a brand script, what a beautiful thing to reach out to 3 or 4 of your donors and say, we've been refining the way that we tell our story. Could we get a cup of coffee, and can I practice this on you?
Or your board, right?
Or your board. and can you give me like feedback? Like, am I connecting deeply to what you're wanting, and to the problem that you have? Can we just have a conversation about that?
No PowerPoint, no
PowerPoint,
no ask.
It takes the pressure off. It allows you to connect human to human, get a wonderful insight, and apply it. And that's another, I think, important point with brand scripts is we're not trying to set these things in stone, and they're not to be memorized word for word. But the not setting in stone is very important because they should be evolving over time. Certain ways of saying things may prove to be more appreciated by the people that you're speaking with. And so having a feedback loop with donors or board members in that way will give you a chance to refine and tweak things so that at the end of the day, you are communicating the best you can. And frankly, that is like what we have to examine is, are we doing the things that we can do the best that we can?
Yeah. Awesome.
Yeah.
Well, if you're a CEO or somebody running a nonprofit, we'd love to help you clarify your story. If you're struggling to get the support you need, or just really struggling to communicate it succinctly, I know we've had that with a few folks. Reach out. Gowithhuman.com, HUMN, as it says on the sign.
That's right.
And we'd love to help you clarify your mission, connect more deeply with your audiences, both those you're serving, but also your donors, and really grow the reach of your mission. I think at the end of the day, that's what it's all about.
Yeah. And as a final word, we just want to say thank you for all of the work that you do. It can often be a thankless job to be reaching out to people who are most in need. We see you. We deeply appreciate you, and we'd love to help you.